All right, it's the weekly hitter with Ricky Larson, Lucky Shots Media, fantasy football news and notes, our DFS picks for the week. And we've got Thursday night football tonight. Let's start there because a lot of injury and fantasy kind of concern. Devontae Adams out, COVID list. Lazard is out as well. What do you think of Rodgers tonight, who the numbers, even without Devontae Adams, are fine. They're great, in fact. And then who's going to rack up the points on the receiving end?
So the main two guys you got to look at first is Robert Tanyan. We look at last season when Devontae Adams was out. That's the reason people had such high expectations for Tanyan going into this year, was because last year of his numbers, excuse me, that were inflated because Adams was out and that was the main guy. Mm-hmm. And then you definitely want to keep an eye on Randall Cobb. I think Randall Cobb is like a streaming wide receiver this week is a smash play. There's a reason Rodgers brought him in. Now, two of your main guys are out. MVS may still not be in. I don't know what the latest on him is.
Yeah, I believe game time decision, I think, is the call there. So still, yeah.
So even if he is in, I mean, if he's a game time decision, he's probably going to be limping into that.
Yeah.
And then out of the backfield, I think Aaron Jones is going to have to, absorb some of those receptions as well. So I think the best play out of this is Tanyan.
Yeah.
But I think, those other two guys are also going to be pretty involved as well. And they're going to need to be because this is going to be a shootout game.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Speaking of limping, DeAndre Hopkins hurt, said he's going to play. Hamstring worries me a little, but he's second in the NFL in touchdowns. I'm still going to start him, obviously. What are we going to see out of a hurt Hopkins tonight?
If we remember the last game he limped into, he only got about 5 points. So I would definitely try to pivot to Christian Kirk, Rondale Moore. Does this mean that Chase Edmonds now becomes more of a factor because he's that receiving back?
Yeah.
You would like to hope so. I'm not playing Edmonds this week. I am, I think, going to start Zach Moss over him. That just seems like a better matchup, more opportunities there. But, it's the best team in the NFL right now. Their defense probably is going to be able to bail them out. They don't have to cover Devontae Adams, so that takes away one giant challenge from them. So, D-Hop, I would try to pivot away from him.
Yeah.
And, like I was talking about with Adams, if you look at the guys who really stepped up with Hopkins maimed, it was Rondale Moore and, a little bit of Christian Kirk. Haven't heard a lot from him the past few weeks, though.
Yeah, it's you've mentioned the offense, obviously plentiful. The defense, too, quietly second in the league in terms of fantasy points. They lose a big part of it, though. J.J. Watt, season-ending injury. Is that going to hurt them eventually, not just fantasy-wise, but as a team potentially?
You would imagine so. He hasn't had, a really game-changing presence.
He's been more pressures, not necessarily sacks.
Yeah, so, it's also something you probably should have prepared for. How many times do we see J.J. Watt come in and, play a few games and then he's out?
Right.
So I'm pretty sure they'll have some sort of game plan to work around that. But you still have Chandler Jones on that defensive line, who's an absolute monster. You still have a bunch of other pieces around. So I think they'll be all right.
Yeah.
It takes away from a little bit of the quarterback pressure they can get, but there's always people every year that step up and surprise you. So possibly whoever's going to come in and replace him could be a big surprise this year.
You got a pick for tonight?
So I ended up choosing the Cardinals. In one of my pick pools, this is the game of the week, so it's worth twice as many points.
Okay.
And out of the 15 games, I gave it 10 points, so fifth highest. Without Adams, that's a huge playmaker, and they're going to have to figure out other things. Whereas Arizona, they have a game plan regardless of D-Hop. So
yeah,
I think they've got it this week. Just like that, a lot better.
I think the Cardinals get the win, but I think it's going to be close. I'm giving myself a little bit leeway here. I'm teasing the Packers up. So if they could just keep things prime time within 12.5, we should be good there.
Right.
You mentioned surprises. Are we in for a surprise this Sunday? Baker absolutely could play. Those are his words. Do we trust him as fantasy players?
In fantasy, no, you don't trust him this week. And as like the football game is concerned, if you're the Browns, why would you just not want him to sit out and stay rested? This is what I talk about a lot is if you're hurt, if you cannot fully go, why the hell are you trying to get on the field?
Yeah.
You're going to just hurt yourself more. You're not going to perform as well as you should. And especially as the starting quarterback of a team, your team's counting on you to do something. And, they're just a team that is so banged up right now.
Yeah.
You got Peoples-Jones, who's out, Landry, who may not play, Odell, who may not play, Chubb is still questionable, still no Kareem Hunt.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty much going to look like the same team that was against the Broncos, who almost lost.
Yeah. Case
And
Keenum 1-0.
The Steelers, who are pretty decent, that defense, it can get after people. They're quietly a pretty good defense. So if Baker's in, I mean, interceptions are going to be thrown, mistakes are going to be made.
Yep.
That's one of my upsets this week.
Okay. Yeah, Steelers certainly no slouch. The offense is a little flaccid with Big Ben, walking skyscraper, but that defense plays with Tomlin and whatnot. It must be the Lions, and I'm more focused on Dan Campbell, and they haven't won a game. Deandre Swift's the second best running back in the league. It's crazy. He's questionable this week, but an automatic play.
Yeah, I mean, if you've looked at his status, almost every week of this season has been questionable.
Yeah.
But he still comes in, puts up numbers like he did last week. And going against the Eagles.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's a smash play. This is a game that was actually really, really tough to pick because the Eagles aren't good either. They just have a couple of wins. In Detroit, they played real tough last week against the Rams, and Deandre Swift was a huge part of that. He's been a huge part of this offense. He was last season. They just didn't realize it until super late. He's probably the best player on that offense. So you just got to press that start button every single week for Deandre Swift.
Well, that's a great segue because I am plugging him into my DFS lineup. He's anchoring my running back. He's my running back 1, my running back 2, your boy, Cordero Patterson. Yes, he's come down a little bit to earth, but again, that's because the Falcons have got more weapons returning, but I still love Patterson against
Kyle
Carolina
Pitts
this week.
Actually doing something now. So,
oh my goodness, quietly. I mean, Chase is stealing all the headlines, but Pitts not necessarily doing the touchdowns, but he's making one-handed catches and racking up yards.
Leads the league in receiving yards the past 2 games, not 2 weeks because they had the bye, but
yeah, I love it. Stafford's my quarterback. I've got in the receiving core Chris Godwin. I believe Antonio Brown is doubtful, probably not going to play. Pittman, another guy I feel like I can trust. Indy, Tennessee is going to be an interesting game to me there in the AFC South. You got some thoughts there?
So the fact that this honestly makes me very irritated. I understand that the home team gets a 3-point bump.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. According to Caesars Sportsbook or whatever, Indy is the 1-point favorite. So, I mean, technically Tennessee is still the favorite, but how in the hell can you see Tennessee as an underdog and not just bet all your money on that? Right. Carson Wentz, sure, he had a couple of good games the past few weeks, but Tennessee, they go in, they beat Buffalo, they kick the shit out of the Chiefs.
Yep.
And you're going to say that this game's even going to be close against a mediocre, the Indianapolis Jonathan Taylors?
Right.
There's no way. I don't think it's going to be a good game. I think Tennessee is going to kick the shit out of them. I think the only bright spot is going to be Jonathan Taylor.
Right.
You're plugging in Michael Pittman. I could see, like last week, a couple of big plays from him.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think the Titans are just they're going to mollywop them.
Yeah, that's an interesting line for sure. And the line is moving towards Tennessee. A lot of public people thinking the same way that the Titans are going to roll. And yeah, I mean, I think that's the play. Tennessee looks great. It's not like they didn't after their huge win, they came right in and beat the Chiefs, devastated them. So, okay, let's see here. Tight end, I'm going Jared Cook. My flex is Henderson, who's been awesome for the Rams. And hopefully
I got a few of the same people.
All right. Hey, I like that. He's just going to run all over the Texans this week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I see that as well. He's also quietly been a really good back this year.
Certainly.
He hasn't been like, holy shit, Derrick Henry went off for this many points this week, or Deandre Swift. Oh my God.
He's not the flashy name.
Yeah. He's just a workhorse. He gets plenty of opportunities and makes the most out of them. And I think you can, if there wasn't a salary cap for this DFS, just put everybody in for the Rams this week.
Right. Yeah.
Because that offense is going to be so good this week.
So my quarterback's Stafford. I'm a little worried because what if this is a total blowout and then he stops producing? But I mean, get a couple touchdowns and he's pretty cheap, 7,600.
Well, I mean, look at last week with Brady against Chicago.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Like a half of football, and Brady had 4 touchdowns.
Yep.
Was good like point. The quarterback 5 on the week. Like I said it last week. I thought Matt Stafford had a really good chance of being that top quarterback. I think he's got just as good a chance this week, and that's why I'm starting him in my DFS lineup as well. He's my quarterback, and he's. I think if you're doing just the Sunday games, he's the second highest quarterback budget wise, but you got that kind of a matchup in an offense that looks this good. You can't not play him,
Right. No, I love it. Let's hear your lineup. You said some similar names, but fill out the rest.
So Stafford at quarterback. At running back, the Chargers are really bad against the run. So Damien Harris, who's looked real good the past couple of weeks, 100-yard game last week. I think he continues that against the Chargers this week, so I plugged him in. Nick Chubb, we just talked about all of the things going on with the Browns. He may play this week.
Yeah.
But even if he does, I still love Dearness Johnson. I was not high on him last week. Went out, ran all over the Broncos. Part of that was the Broncos they couldn't have tackled a house if it fell on top of them. And he looked really good. And, if Chubb is in, what kind of role is Johnson going to have? Well, he's going to have the Kareem Hunt role.
Yep.
And Kareem Hunt arguably has been better than Nick Chubb this year. So I think he's a very good play this week. At my wide receivers, spending up on Jamar Chase, a game against the Jets. I mean, if you've got a guy, he's had a 40-plus yard reception every single week so far. And, I mean, that connection is great. I think he possibly gets 2 of those in a rout against the Jets.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a huge play. I'm not excited about the Washington-Denver game.
Yeah.
But Tim Patrick, I think, is a very good play this week. If Jerry Jeudy is back this week, which is still up in the air as he's coming off IR, that's one that'll possibly change, because if Judy's back, Patrick's going to be next to irrelevant. So, but against Washington, kind of shitty defense in a game that's probably going to be close, I like one of those receivers. Emmanuel Sanders, you got to roll out Buffalo. All things Buffalo, it's going to look good this week. My tight end.
My boy.
No.
KP?
You probably not going to know who he is. Tommy Sweeney.
Oh, my God. Boston College. Come on, of course.
Okay, you do know Tommy Sweeney. All right.
I love T. Sweeney. So Bill's tight end behind Knox.
Yep, he's a fantastic play this week. Miami's not very good against tight ends. Next to like bottom of the league against tight ends. And if you look at the impact Dawson Knox was having, 4 straight weeks with touchdowns in a game where Buffalo's going to run all over this team, I think Tommy Sweeney can at least get 3 or 4 receptions, possibly get in the end zone once. And for a sub $3,000 tight end, that's huge. Henderson, as we talked about, that's just a great matchup. He's a quietly great running back. And then because I spent so low on Sweeney, I get to plug in the Bengals defense against a backup quarterback for the New York Jets.
Who you heard? It's going to be Flacco, right? They traded back for him. So your old boy, Joe, the hat rack Flacco back there.
Yeah, I'm not worried about it.
No, 100%. You mentioned Chase Adam last week. That was crazy when they beat up on the Ravens. He just ran right past the defense for like 80 yards. I just I got rid of Mahomes. I'm out on the Mahomes sweepstake in a league.
I just got rid of Tyreek Hill, so
there you go. I got Harris in return, Marvin Jones Jr. I was rolling out DJ Dallas as my running back number 2, so I needed to replenish the roster. I always used to be so afraid of New England running backs. Hell, I started Brandon Bolden in one league last week, and he went off, but now he's probably going to do nothing. Harris seems to be the most reliable guy we've seen in that backfield for Belichick in almost a decade.
Yeah, he's kind of a guy that last year even you were waiting to see who was going to take over that backfield, and you saw those flashes from Harris. But it was, I don't know if it was schemes of things. They also had Cam Newton, so you didn't see a whole lot of production out of Harris. You saw those flashes, and you knew he could be good. I think the offense that they're running now is much more complementary to have Harris be good, and he just is.
Yep.
And I really enjoy him. If there was a way that I could buy him for kind of cheap, I definitely would try. But I've sold away a lot of things these past couple of weeks to make one roster look like another roster that's doing well. So hopefully that'll help work things out.
Appreciate it as always. Great stuff. Ricky Larson, Lucky Shots Media. Follow him on Twitter. Subscribe on YouTube. Great stuff each and every week. We appreciate it, my man.
Thank you.